I thought ghosts were only meant to be seen in the movies or on Netflix. How wrong I was. When Jenna suggested the weekend getaway, I thought it would be just what we needed. Things had been rough. Not catastrophic, just tiring. 8 years together, and the magic was flickering like a dying bulb. So when she showed me the listing, an old hotel hidden in a forest clearing, with vintage charm and no cell service, I agreed. Romantic isolation sounded like a cure. God, what a mistake. The drive there took nearly 5 hours. The last hour was nothing but a narrow road winding through thick trees that clawed at the car as if they didn't want us there. The GPS lost signal 30 minutes in, but Jenna just laughed, squeezing my hand with her cold fingers. "We're disconnected from the world now," she said. "It's perfect." The hotel looked like it had been carved from the bones of something old and forgotten. A Victorian-style structure with moss creeping up the stone walls, its windows dark and reflective, like empty eyes. There was no sign, just a rusted gate that swung open on its own when we approached. No other cars in the lot, no lights on. The front door was unlocked. We stepped into silence. The lobby was breathtaking, in a morbid kind of way. Grand chandelier, velvet armchairs, check-in desk with a brass bell. A fire crackled softly in a massive hearth despite no one being there to tend it. The air smelled like old perfume and decaying wood. Jenna rang the bell. No one came. Then a key slid across the desk from behind it, as if pushed by invisible fingers. Room 217. I swear I felt the cold sweep of breath on my neck when I picked it up. We should have left then, but we didn't. Room 217 was on the 3rd floor. No elevator. As we climbed the stairs, I kept hearing the faint thud of footsteps behind us. Too light to be mine, too irregular to be an echo. But every time I looked back, the hall was empty. Our room was beautiful in a faded way, floral wallpaper peeling at the corners, a grand canopy bed with red velvet curtains, a wardrobe with a full-length mirror that didn't quite reflect right, and the balcony. It looked over the forest canopy, stretching endlessly into the dusk. We unpacked, poured wine, tried to enjoy ourselves, tried to laugh, tried to ignore the whispers. It started with the mirror. I caught a glimpse of someone standing behind me. Just a flash, though. A tall woman with no eyes, but when I turned, no one was there. Jenna saw her too, later that night. Standing by the wardrobe. We laughed it off. Old hotels creak, we said. But that night, the laughter died. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of someone sobbing. Not Jenna. This was deep, guttural and agonizing. A man's voice echoing through the walls. I sat up. Jenna wasn't beside me. The bathroom door was closed, light off. "Jenna?" I whispered. No answer. I stepped into the hall. Darkness swelled around me, like a lung filling with smoke. The sobbing grew louder, coming from every direction at once. And then I heard her, Jenna, whispering my name like she was calling from underwater. I followed the sound down the hall, past peeling doors. Each room cracked open, just a little, like they were watching me. Room 213 had red handprints smeared across the inside of the glass. Room 215 had shadows pacing inside, though I could hear no footsteps. And then I found her. She was standing at the end of the hall facing the wall. "Jenna?" I asked. She didn't move. When I touched her shoulder, she turned slowly, too slowly, and her face wasn't hers. It was bloated, pale, with black sockets for eyes. Her mouth opened, wider and wider, until it tore. I ran. I found myself back in room 217, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. The door slammed shut behind me and locked on its own. I turned, and Jenna was there, asleep in the bed. I backed away. When she woke up, she said she'd never left the room. "I was right here," she insisted. "You were the one who disappeared." We argued, of course, but deep down, we both knew something was wrong. The air felt heavier now. The walls seemed closer. I could hear soft moans through the vents, like the building was alive and aching. We decided to leave, But the hallway had changed. It no longer led to the stairs, just more endless corridors of identical doors. Some doors opened as we passed, revealing things I can barely describe. One room held a couple lying in bed, their throats slit, hands clasped like lovers. Another room had mirrors on all sides, and every reflection was of me, dead, rotting, grinning. Jenna started screaming. Something grabbed her ankle. A hand from beneath the carpet, pale and desperate. I pulled her free, but not before it left a dark bruise around her leg, like a burn. We ran, but the hotel wouldn't let us out. The next day, or what we assumed was day, we found the lobby again. Still empty. The fire had gone out. Cobwebs were everywhere, thicker than before. We pounded on the front door. It wouldn't budge. Jenna started to lose it. She cried, screamed, said she saw her mother's corpse walking the halls. I begged her to stay calm. I tried everything. Breaking windows, kicking doors, yelling for help. Nothing worked, and the hotel kept showing us things. A hallway of mirrors where our reflections aged in seconds and crumbled. A ballroom filled with dancing couples, all long dead, moving in stiff, grotesque patterns. When one of them turned, I saw its face stitched shut. Jenna collapsed in the middle of the lobby, clutching her ears. "They're inside me," she whispered. That was the last thing she said to me. I don't know how long I was unconscious. I woke up outside the hotel, alone. The building was gone. They say I was found wandering the highway, barefoot and bloodied, muttering about room numbers and ghosts in the walls. They searched for Jenna, but found no trace, not even a shoe. They told me the hotel never existed. No property, no records, nothing on satellite images. They told me I invented it all. Maybe they're right. Maybe my mind snapped, but I remember every whisper, every scream, every door that opened into death. I remember Jenna's eyes the last time I saw her. Empty, resigned. Like she knew she wasn't getting out. Now I sit in this padded room, rocking in silence, listening to the vents above me. Sometimes, if it's quiet enough, I hear the bell at the front desk. Room 217 is still calling, and someday, I know, I'll answer. I still remember the way Mia smiled when she talked about her father's old farmhouse. "It's perfect," she'd said, eyes glinting like a child recalling a secret hideaway. No neighbours for miles, a fireplace, and the stars at night. We'll have the whole world to ourselves. At the time, I welcomed the idea. We both needed a break from the city, from the noise, from everything. Our relationship had become mechanical, a series of well-timed habits, dressed up as love. Maybe we thought the silence would fix that. Maybe we believed that this would be romantic. It wasn't. The drive there took longer than expected. The directions were vague, scrawled on a wrinkled sheet of paper her dad had mailed weeks ago. Not texted, not emailed, mailed. Already, that should have been a sign. The road eventually dissolved into dirt, flanked by towering trees that leaned inward, like they were listening. By the time we arrived, dusk had dipped its fingers across the sky, staining the clouds in bruised shades of purple and red. The farmhouse looked like something out of a forgotten postcard. Wide porch, rocking chairs, paint peeling from the wood in soft curls. It stood alone at the edge of a forest so dense it looked like a wall. There were no streetlights, no visible power lines. Just the sounds of crickets and the soft creak of the wind pushing against the trees. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and mothballs. Dust clung to everything. Mia moved through the rooms like she was returning to a place she half remembered from dreams. Her fingers grazed old furniture, her lips curled into a wistful smile. I followed her upstairs to the bedroom, pretending to share her nostalgia, but something about the place made my stomach turn. The air felt too still. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was expectant, like something was holding its breath. We spent the first night drinking cheap red wine by the fireplace. The flames threw long shadows across the walls, and I thought I saw something move past the window. Just a flicker, a blur. I shook it off, blamed the wine. But the feeling stuck to me, a prickle under the skin, a sense that we weren't as alone as we thought. The first strange thing happened the next morning. I found a dead bird on the porch, its neck twisted at an impossible angle, feathers still fluttering like it had just fallen. No marks, no blood, just broken. Mia dismissed it, saying animals die all the time. But later, we found more, 3 of them, then 5, each one closer to the edge of the woods. By the 3rd day, things got worse. I woke up to the sound of something scraping against the outside wall. Not claws, not nails, more like fingertips, slow and deliberate. I nudged Mia awake, but by the time she sat up, the sound had stopped. She told me it was probably a raccoon, but that afternoon we saw them. We were walking along the edge of the property when I noticed shapes between the trees. Still figures, people, or what looked like people, just standing among the trunks. They didn't move, didn't speak. Their clothes were torn, dirty, barely hanging on to what used to be bodies. One of them was missing a jaw. Another swayed like a puppet held by tangled strings. I froze. Mia grabbed my arm and whispered, "Back inside, now." We locked every door, drew the curtains, sat on the living room floor, barely speaking. She told me her father had once mentioned things happening in the woods. People going missing, strange sightings, but she always thought it was just the town's way of keeping kids out of trouble. A local myth, something about the soil being cursed, or a burial site disturbed decades ago. That night they came closer. We heard them dragging their feet across the grass, bumping into the porch rails. One of them moaned, a sound so empty, so devoid of anything human that it made my teeth hurt. We didn't sleep. We just sat there, holding each other, listening to death shuffle outside our door. By morning they were gone. We tried to leave. The car wouldn't start. No signal, no help. Mia wanted to make a run for it, head through the woods to reach the nearest road. I wasn't sure, but staying felt like slow death. We packed what we could and ran. It was worse in the woods. They were everywhere. They didn't chase us. Not exactly. They wandered, stumbling towards sound, towards the scent of us. It was like they didn't know what they were doing, only that they had to keep moving forward. I tried to lead, tried to keep us quiet, but the underbrush was thick and the forest was alive with the snap of twigs beneath our feet. One of them grabbed Mia's wrist. She screamed. I turned just in time to see the thing open its mouth. No tongue, black gums, and sink its teeth into her shoulder. Blood sprayed. She kicked it off, and I helped her run, but I knew what that bite meant. We barely made it back to the farmhouse. Mia collapsed in the living room, pale, shaking. The wound was already darkening. I tried to clean it, wrap it, stop the infection, but we both knew it was too late. By evening, her breathing changed, slower, shallower. She looked up at me, her eyes already losing their focus. "Don't let me become one of them," she whispered. I couldn't answer. I sat with her through the night, watching her slip away. She stopped breathing just before dawn. And then, minutes later, she started again. Ragged, unnatural gasps, her chest rising like it had no idea how to anymore. I ran. I know how that sounds. Cowardly, despicable. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill her. I couldn't stay and watch her forget who she was. I took the keys, the backpack, and ran until I couldn't hear the house anymore. I kept running until the trees opened to asphalt, until I collapsed on a road and was picked up by a passing truck driver. They found me 2 days later, dehydrated, mumbling about Mia and the forest. They thought I was insane. Maybe I am. I stayed in the city for a week, then 2, then a month, but I couldn't stop thinking about her. I kept picturing her face, not the way it looked when I left, but the way it looked when she smiled in candlelight, with wine in her hand, and her feet tucked under a blanket. I kept dreaming of her walking through the trees, alone, cold, still wearing my hoodie. And I started to think, what if there's something left of her? What if she remembers me? What if she's waiting? I left last night. Didn't tell anyone. Just packed a bag, drove the same winding road, and parked by the same rusted gate. The house is still there, dark, silent. The woods feel thicker than before, and the birds are gone. I'm about to go inside. If you're reading this, if someone finds this, don't come looking. Don't go into the forest, because once something touches you there, it never really lets you go. There are things I saw that night that I still can't explain. And even if I could, no one would believe me. I've tried to tell people, teachers, cops, even my own mother. But they all look at me the same way, like I'm a ticking bomb wrapped in a trauma blanket. They listen, nod, and then gently suggest therapy. They think I snapped, that I made it all up to deal with the grief. But I remember every second of it. I remember her scream. I remember the chains. I remember the thing in the dark. It was supposed to be just another dumb teenage night. Me, Jess, and our friend Kyle. We were all leaving for college in a few weeks, trying to squeeze out the last drops of our summer before responsibility buried us. Kyle had this big house on the edge of town, one of those old ones with too many rooms and a creepy basement. His parents were away for the weekend, and he invited us over to drink, mess around, and celebrate our freedom, as he put it. He even joked that we could use the basement for some privacy, complete with a wink in Jess's direction. At the time, I thought it was a little weird, but we laughed it off. Kyle was always a bit eccentric, into all the fringe stuff, conspiracies, biology experiments, occult books from antique stores. The kind of guy who claimed he'd hacked his DNA to sleep less and grow muscle faster, but still had skinny arms and bags under his eyes. He was harmless, or so we thought. The basement was cold and smelled like damp concrete and old wood. Jess wrapped herself in my hoodie, while I flicked on the hanging bulb that barely lit the place. The walls were lined with shelves packed with dusty boxes and strange jars. Some had murky liquid with things floating inside. Deformed frogs, pickled organs, who knows what else. It was like a cross between a mad scientist's lab and a hoarder's bunker. Jess wasn't impressed, but Kyle said we could hang out down there, undisturbed, so we went along with it. He left us alone after a while, grinning like an idiot and reminding us not to touch anything weird. Jess and I found a ratty old couch, kissed for a bit, and tried to forget how gross everything felt. But it was hard to ignore the sounds. Low metallic scraping, a dull thud, something dragging along concrete. I thought it was the pipes. Jess was more skeptical. After 20 minutes, curiosity got the better of her. She pulled away and whispered, "What is that?" I told her it was nothing, just Kyle's creepy house being creepy. But then it happened again, closer this time. A deep, throaty rasp, wet, animalistic. We stood up listening. The noise came from behind a stack of boxes near the back wall. Jess, being braver than I ever was, crept forward, brushing aside old tarps and peeling labels. I followed reluctantly, my heart already pounding. That's when we saw the door. It was thick and made of rusted iron, like something out of a prison or an asylum. A sliding panel was cut into the centre, just big enough to see through. A chain hung across the front, padlocked tight. The sound came again, louder now. Something breathing on the other side. Too loud, too wet, too wrong. I looked at Jess. Her face was pale, eyes wide. "Did Kyle say anything about this?" she asked. "No," I whispered. "Let's go back upstairs." But then the bolt slid open. We both jumped back. The small panel in the door was open now, revealing only darkness behind it. And then something moved inside. Something pale and twitching, just out of sight. A hand, or what might have once been a hand, reached out through the gap. It had fingers, but they were too long, bent the wrong way. Its skin was blistered, purple and grey, like it had been boiled alive. Jess screamed. I grabbed her arm and pulled her back, but not before the thing made a sound, a gurgling groan, part human, part animal, like it was trying to speak through a broken throat. Kyle came flying down the stairs seconds later, his face flushed and panicked. "You weren't supposed to go near that," he shouted, voice cracking. "Why the hell did you touch it?" "We didn't touch anything," Jess cried. "What in God's name is in there, Kyle?" He looked between us, chest heaving, before rushing to the door and slamming the panel shut. He started mumbling to himself, checking the chains, tightening bolts. I asked him again, louder this time, "What the hell is that?" He didn't look at me when he answered. "It's someone I used to know, someone who wronged me. I fixed him." Those words hung in the air like poison. Jess backed away, pulling me with her, eyes locked on Kyle. "What do you mean you fixed him?" Kyle turned around and for the first time, I saw it. Real madness. It wasn't just some messed up hobby anymore. He believed he was doing something righteous. "He hurt me," Kyle said. "Bullied me all through middle school. Broke my arm. Made my life hell. I found him last year. I was just going to scare him at first, but then I saw what I could do. How I could change him. Make him understand pain. Strip him down to what he really is." "You're insane," Jess whispered. "I made him better," Kyle said, smiling. "He doesn't even remember who he used to be. Now he just is." Before I could process what he meant, the lights went out. Everything plunged into darkness, and then the chains snapped. I still hear that sound in my nightmares. The sharp metallic twang of links breaking under something far too strong, followed by a roar that didn't belong in this world. The door burst open with a crash that shook the floor. I grabbed Jess's hand, but she slipped in the chaos. I turned around just in time to see the thing rush past me. It was huge, hunched, and grotesque, hairless with glistening flesh and arms that scraped the ground. Its face was a ruin, no eyes, just torn skin and teeth that jutted in all directions. It grabbed Kyle before he could scream. I'll spare the details, they're burned into my brain. All I can say is He didn't die quickly. Jess screamed again, and that snapped me into motion. I found her in the dark, pulled her to her feet, and we ran. Up the stairs, through the kitchen, toward the front door, but that thing was faster. I don't know how it got ahead of us, but it did. It came crashing through the hallway like a nightmare, grabbed Jess by the waist, and yanked her backward into the dark. She screamed my name, reaching out, her fingers slipping through mine, and then she was gone. I ran. I ran so hard my lungs burned, my throat bled, and my legs went numb. I don't remember getting home. I only remember the silence afterward. The sirens, the questions. The way everyone looked at me, like I was the monster. They found Kyle's body, torn to pieces, but no sign of Jess. No blood trail, no prints, nothing. The door in the basement was welded shut when the police arrived, and the room behind it was empty. They said I had a psychotic break, that maybe Kyle had a wild dog, or some kind of illegal animal, that I was hallucinating under stress. They never found her. No one believes me, but I know what I saw. I know what's still out there. And sometimes, at night, when everything's quiet, I dream of her face. Not the way it was, but twisted, hollow-eyed, standing in the dark at the foot of my bed, waiting.